Hi and welcome back to Sailing LRA. This is part 2 of our test and review of the Watersnake Venom 44 pound thrust 36 inch shaft transom mounted trolling motor. Thanks for joining us. I've just come back from 6 days on the boat, so I've had the opportunity to test the motor over a long period with some very varied circumstances, so hopefully this will be an accurate real world review. I've made some notes, I hope you don't mind me referring to those. Let's talk about first portability. So it was much easier than a standard outboard to get in and out of the car. Having the weight separated was very simple. It's a light motor. It's only about 10 kilos, and the battery box is about the same. So it was really nice to have that weight separated. A really good thing. The other thing that was great about it, and you'll see in the video following, is that it didn't smell like petrol. And keeping petrol fumes out of a car is always a good thing. So massive points for that. Connection. Now I've used the standard connectors on the battery box and the cables attached to the Watersnake. I will be changing those to Anderson plugs. I definitely think that's the way to go, and that will be one of the modifications that I'll be making very soon. Usability. Now there are 3 categories that I've put down here that I've used the motor for, and I'm going to go through those now. So the first one is to and from the boat. Now this is the standard tender work, if you like, taking you and your equipment from the wharf to the boat and taking it back off again at the end of your weekend or at the end of your holiday. I found the motor well and truly able to capture all of my needs during that process. I usually use the speed of 3, which was, I would suggest to you, a fast rowing speed. The only difference is I wasn't rowing, and so massive points for that one. My next one was sightseeing. I do this a lot. I like to get out in the tender, and I like to go into new moorings, and I like to look at boats. So I go in and out of the boats and have a look and see what's there. Again, I used 3. I found it a really good speed for that. When I was at the mooring at Balmoral Beach, I was in that boat for 30-35 minutes maybe on the speed of 3, just going in and around the mooring, and I found that absolutely fantastic. Quiet, stress-free, but enough speed to get me in and around without ever wanting any more speed than that. Fishing. I also like to fish in the tender. It lets me get in close to the bank and again in and around boats, and this is where the trolling motor aspect of this really does shine. So speeds 1 and 2 were fantastic for this. Just readjusting the boat, getting yourself back off the shore if the tide was pushing you in, that kind of thing. Speeds 1 and 2, that's when they really come into their own, and this motor's origins as a trolling motor are evident. So fantastic speeds 1 and 2, and really good fishing speeds. So let's have a look at the Watersnake. We did the test, we did the unboxing and first impressions on part 1, and as expected, it sits fairly high if it's correctly placed in the water. I've got my battery box down there. I'm not sure if that's the best place to have it at this stage, but let's have a look at the different speeds and what they can do. We've got a nor'easter blowing, I would suggest 5 knots maximum. So let's have a look at number 1. As expected, really quiet because the motor of course is underwater, and with the nor'easter behind us, we're moving. That's the best you could say for that one. If you turn around and point it up into the nor'easter. Steering is very light, as you would expect, very light. So if we turn around and turn it up towards the nor'easter and use the boat as a bit of a measuring gauge, if you like, let's see if it's going to push up against the nor'easter. So we're essentially going nowhere. It's holding its position, but we're not actually moving towards the boat. Flicking into number 2. Now onto number 2. We're now starting to make some headway. Let's get that nice and straight. We are making headway. Very gradual headway. As I say, this is only about, we're only in about a 5 knot nor'easter, which is absolutely nothing for an afternoon in Sydney. Let's flick it into number 3, and you can actually see the difference there. We are making much more headway in comparison with the boat. You can see they're now pushing quite well up against that nor'easter. Let's do a lap of the boat. Sorry about the sun there. So we're throttling along at number 3. You can see the wash at the back of the boat there. What you can feel is the vibration through the boat of the motor. It's not big, it's certainly nothing like you get on an outboard, but it is there. Number 3, I would suggest, is a usable speed. Just having another look around, we now have the wind behind us. You can see that we're making okay pace. I don't have any way to measure the speed, but I would suggest it's probably 2.5 knots. Let's throw it now into number 4. And there's a noticeable difference. Again, let's try it up into the wind. So heading up towards the boat now, into the wind. What would be really nice if there was a way to tension the steering. It is very, very light. So 4, quite usable, and you can see as we go past the boat what kind of speed we're getting up into about a 5 knot nor'easter. So if this nor'easter was doubled, you could basically have that speed. But that's getting along alright. If you're not into the wind, a fair bit more speed involved. Note that the motor is sitting quite high. This is about the prime position for the power head under the water or under the boat, and note that it is sitting quite high. I'm finding that I'm actually spending more time holding the control unit like that rather than holding the throttle. Let's kick it up into 5 and see what we get from there. There's a noticeable jolt. You can see the wake off the back of the boat, and that's really going now. Let's have a look at it in comparison with the boat. Again, heading up into that light nor'easter. That's quite a useful speed. And I think that would push you through a nor'easter even twice this strength. Yeah, that's quite a useful speed. Coming around again. There we go. I think the main thing to remember is this is not an outboard motor. This is not a petrol outboard motor. This is an adapted trolling motor, and trolling motors are not meant to get you up on the plane and get you moving around. My thoughts are this: you wouldn't want anything any smaller. Now this boat is about 80 kilos. This boat operator isn't 80 kilos, so I would suggest about 100. The motor itself, I think that's about 10. The battery's about 12. That's about all the weight I've got in the boat. And it's not going to set the world on fire as far as speed is concerned. It's not going to do that. But it sure beats the hell out of rowing. That I can tell you. The other thing was, it was just great to put it in the car and not have to try and cover it in a plastic bag to stop the petrol fumes from coming out. Probably high on everybody's list of questions is, how much power did it actually consume? I made it clear in my first video that I used a 100 amp hour lithium battery, and my charging system was inadequate, and I don't believe I put too much back into that battery over the week, and that battery was never exhausted. And I used that motor a lot, and I used even up to the top speed on numerous occasions, and I didn't come to the bottom of that 100 amp hour lithium battery. I believe for a weekend you could probably get away with even half of that, if not less. I was very impressed with the lack of consumption of power by that motor. Overall impressions: I am totally convinced that this is a viable option for my use, and it may be for yours. I won't be going back to a petrol outboard, and in fact will be putting my petrol outboard on the market. I am that convinced with this concept being now proven. The Watersnake Venom, long-term tests will determine whether that motor itself will hold up to what I want, but the concept, I believe, is proven, and I won't be going back. Please remember to like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching this and all of my videos. See you in the next one. Bye for now.